Hey, welcome to CryptoCoach365. It's day 117. Mike Tozoni here. I'm just here packing for my next trip. It's Las Vegas. I'm going to a class taught by my legal, what do I call them? I keep calling them legal team, but they're more like I guess a legal company, legal service. They specialize mainly in real estate. They're called Anderson Business Advisors. But they teach classes on corporate structuring and on how to protect assets, how to reduce taxes, and also one of their classes is on nonprofits, how to set up and run a nonprofit corporation. So for me, that's probably not going to be very useful, although I hear that it is a kind of a tax strategy possibly, so I'll find out what that's all about. But mainly I'm going because my brother wanted to start his own nonprofit, and I'm hoping that this class will actually help him figure out how to do that and how to get started and how to manage it. So just finishing up packing. My flight's going to be in about 3 hours. It's about an hour to the airport. Sorry, I'll be boarding in 3 hours. So anyway, yeah, finishing that up. Crypto seems to be going up again. It's 6,700 or so. Actually, I really didn't want to talk about crypto prices, because if I talk about the price of crypto, it'll really date the videos. Like if you're watching this years down the road, you'll actually kind of know when this was published and stuff. But I mean, yeah, I'm publishing these on specific dates anyway. But I mean, main thing is that the price of crypto is not the main goal of crypto. It's the adoption, use, and all the things that it provides. One of the things I wanted to mention, we had a call with regards to our business with another company that tries to link statistically Bitcoin addresses together. And basically, when you're sending Bitcoin back and forth, in your wallets at least, every transaction creates a new address. So for example, if I were to have 5 Bitcoin and I were to send you 3, the transaction will look like 5 Bitcoins are going out of my wallet, 3 are going to one address, and 2 are going to another address. Both of them are new addresses, and one of those addresses is mine and one of them is yours. So the 3 would obviously go to you, and 2 would go back to me. That's what's called a change address or a change transaction. Actually, what really would happen is that 3 would go to you, 1.9999, almost a full 2 would go to me, and there would be a very small, tiny amount that's actually left that's not going anywhere. That amount that's left that's not going anywhere is what the transaction fee is, and that's what miners collect for themselves when they actually mine blocks. So the purpose of spending everything from your wallet and having 2 transactions, one out and one back to you, one of the purposes is so that anybody looking publicly at the Bitcoin ledger, which as we know is entirely public, excuse me, nobody would actually know where the money is going. So if you were to see 5 Bitcoin and you know that those 5 belong to me, and you were to see that 3 and 2 went out of my account, there would be no real way for you to see which of those went back to me and which went out to somebody else. And the idea is to kind of increase financial privacy, so to speak. So if you were to find out that this 5 Bitcoin belongs to me, and you were to follow that transaction after transaction, after the first transaction, unless it's really nice round numbers, like for example, if I had $1,000 worth in my account and I sent out $20 and $980 worth, it would be fairly easy to figure out that the $20 was probably being spent and the 980 amount is going back to me. But generally, the idea is that if they're not easily identifiable, after the first transaction, you will have a 50% confidence level that one of those, like if you were to guess, you get a 50-50 chance to guessing right that one of those transactions is mine or going back to me. So you'd know that I still have the 2 Bitcoin. If I were to send another transaction the same way, so it's 2 of them, at that point you have a 25% chance of guessing it right. After another transaction, it's half of that, so it's 12.5%. And after another transaction, it's half of that, so it's 6.25, and so on. So even if a transaction an account is discovered to be owned by a specific person, there is a reduced chance with every transaction of guessing which money still belongs to that person. So it kind of splits up the money between people, kind of mixes it up all around just to make it a little harder to figure out who owns what. But what often happens is that, let's say I have 3 Bitcoin in my wallet, and then I get another 2 Bitcoin in my wallet from somebody else, and then I have to send somebody 5 Bitcoin. So at that point, like, you might know that the 2 Bitcoin belong to me, but you don't know that the 3 Bitcoin are also mine. However, when I send that transaction out to somebody as 5 Bitcoins, because not the 3 address and a 2 address does not have the full amount to be able to fulfill the 5, I have to spend from both of them. And when I spend from both of them, that is a way to prove that I actually own both of those accounts. So it kind of takes 2 of them and ties them together, proving that I own both of them. And it is actually possible to statistically analyze the entire blockchain and collect some of the known addresses, such as people might post an address online on a forum, or they might post it on their YouTube group or YouTube video or someplace, basically where they're saying, here's my address, please send me money. Or if you have a transaction, if you ever transact with an exchange, and that exchange happens to record who deposited what money and who withdrew which money. Like, for example, I have an account at Coinbase, and when I buy Bitcoin through Coinbase, if I haven't done it in many years, but if I had, they have a record of me buying Bitcoin from them, and then them sending that Bitcoin to an address that belongs to me. So now they have a record of my address. If that information were to come out publicly, or if somebody were to request it, they would now have a address that is linked to me. Then from that point forward, they can use the statistical analysis that I talked about to try to figure out and see if there's any addresses. Like, I might have many addresses going through, and they might see that like one of these belongs to me because it's Coinbase, and then as these lines of transactions are going through, eventually 4 of them ended up matching into one. Let's say I move all my money out of one wallet into another, and I have to take all my transactions and all the addresses, put them together, and send them to a single address. Later on, they can figure out using statistics that this address belongs to this person. Or it might even be that statistically they might come up with like, because one of these addresses is mine, and and many transactions happen afterwards, and then these things get tied later. They might statistically come up with some estimate of what percentage chance there is that an address belongs to me. And really in Bitcoin, that's mostly how, unless you know for a fact that an address belongs to some person, most of the addresses that you can statistically figure out will be based on what's called a confidence level or a statistical probability. So you can look at an address, you can do statistical analysis on it, and you can have a confidence level of, say, 90% that it belongs to me, or 70% or 20%. And all that means is that there's a good chance that it belongs to this person, but it's not 100% guaranteed. Which, again, it keeps you kind of private and kind of legally protected, because if you can get a confidence level of these coins belonging to you down to below 50%, at that point, if anything happens, say legally, it's like it's a 50-50 chance that it belongs to me, and you can't prove it either way. So, but the reason we were talking to that group is because what that company does is they try to figure out whether coins have come from a specific location or have been used, or from a certain company, let's say, that may not be legal or may not be, the banks may not be in favor of. And they do that through tying these coins together. They do that by seeing where transactions originated, because you can connect to a lot of nodes around the world, and you can see which node broadcasted the transaction first, and you can kind of guess that that might be where the transaction originated. Not necessarily, but like for example, you can have a wallet that's located in US, and that wallet connects to a node in Canada and sends a transaction directly to that node, and then that node broadcasts a transaction for the first time to the network, which would make it look like the transaction originated in Canada even though it came out in US. But anyway, so what they do is basically give statistical analysis on coins to figure out where they came from, or at least with the confidence level, and then you can kind of figure out what's going on and try to avoid any kind of I guess legal or what should I call it, regulatory issues that might come up. And there are ways to actually kind of get around that, which will be implemented in the future. They're already being implemented as well. For example, one of them is coin mixing, where let's say I needed to pay you 2 Bitcoin, and then somebody else needed to pay somebody else 2 Bitcoin. What we could do is, and let's say there's 5 of us who all have to pay somebody those 2 Bitcoin. What we can do is create transactions where all of us put our money into the same pot, and then out of that pot, 2 Bitcoin gets sent to everybody who is supposed to be paid those 2 Bitcoin, and a change address goes to back to us. So if you were to look at that transaction, what you would see is it's the same as everybody getting around the table, piling their cash together into a single pile on that table, and then everybody who needs to get paid pulling their cash out of that pile. In the end, you would have no way to know where, who paid whom, where the money that was paid actually came from, and it completely obfuscates who owns what from that point forward. So like, even if you knew exactly who owned the money in the beginning, after that point you have no way to prove whose money went to where. This is still in the development. It's used. It's not very practical. There's still some security issues, but there is going to be implemented eventually as a built-in function of Bitcoin. And actually some other cryptocurrencies already use this kind of a system, like Monero and Zcash. They pretty much use these obfuscation techniques to hide it, hide transactions. Now, first thought people usually have is, well, this is, people will be doing illegal stuff. This is money laundering. But that's not really the only reason. I mean, if you look at financial transactions, most of them are already private already, and it's there's a good reason for that. So like, if I'm running a company, I don't want my competitors knowing how much money I'm making, how much I'm losing, what I'm spending that money on. Let's say if you're working at a job, you don't want to you don't want your grocer, your bartender, and your other colleagues or anybody else you're dealing with to know what your paycheck is. So if you were to, let's say, use Bitcoin right now and you got paid, let's say, $1,500 as a paycheck, and then you went to a bar and you spent that money directly out of your wallet, the bartender can look one transaction back and see that you got $1,500, and then he may be able to look back a couple of more transactions and see that there was another $1,500, and he'll know that your income level. So we want to hide that kind of stuff, and that's really what the purpose of mixing this stuff is for Bitcoin. And it's also because like, it's really your money. It's not anybody's business what you do with it or how you spend it. So and that's really the goal of Bitcoin as well. So anyway, it's kind of getting late, so I'm gonna pack up and head out to the airport, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be in Vegas working, class 9 a.m. till probably 5 p.m. Then my brother is going to be first time in Vegas, so I'm going to be catching up on some business I have to do personally, and also probably sightseeing Vegas a little bit. But anyway, should be fun and definitely going to be informative, and I'll see you guys tomorrow and let you know how that went. So see you.